Alright, so this latest chapter of One Piece was pretty damn ridiculous in the funniest ways possible. Truly, it is this sort of content in the midst of such important events that makes One Piece, and truly one of a kind. With the previous chapter, we had absolute mayhem ensue, or at least a bit more than moments before, as thanks to Tama's declaration, a number of Kaido's forces suddenly turned against one another in pursuit of his ultimate defeat and the victory of the Straw Hats. Meanwhile, Nami and Zeus would definitively rekindle their relationship, as Zeus' status would be risen from servant to sidekick. Beyond this, the mysterious figures that make up CP0 would have a pretty interesting conversation in regards to their true objective here. The tide of the battle was seemingly shifting in some pretty considerable ways, but more than anything they needed to confirm the death of one particular individual. And at that, they themselves seemed to be a bit in the dark when it came to the true purpose of this task, but even still they did not expect their target to even survive his encounter with one of the former warlords of the sea, Jinbei, thus making it very clear that the person they were referring to was in fact Who's Who. And this battle between him and Jinbei was definitely intense. He'd firstly make his second-hand animosity towards Luffy as the bearer of not only Shanks' former straw hat, but also the devil fruit he was once made to transport, very much known. Again and again these two would clash, but despite this, Who's Who had questions he desired to be answered. Namely in regards to a tale he had clung onto in prison regarding a legendary warrior believed to one day save all slaves, the sun god Nika. A subject we had thoroughly covered with the previous chapter discussion, as there were a number of past instances worth recounting for the sake of further understanding. Now the reason Who's Who even brought this subject up was because Jinbei was previously the captain of the Sun Pirates, a crew made up of many former slaves, and so he'd hoped that there might be some sort of connection there. And truly, the moment this was brought up, Jinbei's mood suddenly shifted to being deadly serious, as he would suddenly make use of a Fishman Karate secret art Demon Brick Fist. And by way of this, he would finish off Who's Who while warning him against touching upon history he is not prepared to face. So certainly some interesting things to cover when it comes to Jinbei, not to mention the whole mystery surrounding what Jinbei was really up to after the Whole Cake Island arc, which we also covered thoroughly in a video of its own, so be sure to check that one out if you are so interested. But with this latest chapter, we firstly open up with Queen versus Sanji, or at least a blip of it. A fight in which Queen would make use of his many cybernetic augmentations as a number of beam attacks would go off, the likes of which Sanji would consider to potentially be of interest to Franky. And not too far away from there, we would have Zoro's impromptu doctor's appointment, a comedically concerning one at that. But now taking a step away from the battlefield entirely, on the Wano Sea, we would have the submarine of the Heart Pirates, who after having recently rescued Luffy from the same very sea, pumped all the water out of him, but were still concerned about his condition. They would all begin to wonder what sort of medical attention they should provide to him, but truly, Luffy only wanted one thing in his current state, and that is meat. He was hungry and he needed food. A pretty funny concept, but one I doubt they will really be able to fulfill with the contents of the submarine alone. Perhaps they may have some rations amidst their supplies, but truly, if they want to satisfy this guy's appetite, they'll probably have to look elsewhere. And of course, right now, Wano is in the midst of celebrating its Fire Festival, so I'm sure there is plenty of food to enjoy there. Past this, we will transition to what is known as the Right Brain Tower, where just like in many other locations, a number of headliners have turned on their former comrades for the sake of their new master, Tama. And this was also the location of Franky and his opponent, Sasaki of the Topiropo, who would both come to know of this sudden shift. Now Franky would actually compliment Sasaki here for just how resilient he is, having withstood so many of his attacks so far, a sentiment that was pretty much mutual among them. And so from here, Sasaki would shift his approach a bit. He would take on a hybrid Zoan form, now looming over Franky. He planned on going to the live floor and taking care of all the traders himself, as he would furthermore reveal a blade of his that had several miniature blades along the side of it, which suddenly began to move like a blender. However, of course, Franky still was not willing to let him through. And he himself wasn't exactly sure why there was such a sudden shift in allegiances, but if it meant more friends on his side, he wasn't exactly complaining. And to this, a few of them would begin to cheer him on. Although, he would furthermore let them know that he was fine by his lonesome and that they should go and help some other people. But again, Sasaki intended to handle this situation himself, as suddenly his neck flap headpiece thing, I seriously have no idea what to call this sort of thing, began to spin around, as suddenly, like a helicopter, he'd just take off, now actually flying. A very strange series of events, which many of these lesser goons would recognize to be really dangerous, now warning Franky. This was Triceracopter, what to me sounds like the sort of ride you would expect to find at a dinosaur theme park. A move that would straight up mow through a bunch of these people. But Sasaki was not done yet, as he would whirl back upwards and attempt to do the very same to Franky, but would instead be met by a sword kept to repel him. And as he redirected this assault into the ground, Franky could not help but mention just how weird all this was, as he had no idea he would be getting into an aerial battle. And according to our paleontologist of the year, Sasaki over here, the Triceratops is a very special breed of dinosaur. But I know damn well it's not that special. However, this revelation did actually stand to increase Sasaki's speed a bit, so it was troubling for sure. And now again, Sasaki's flesh propeller thing would begin to spin around as Franky would ready himself for another attack. But as it turns out, Sasaki was spinning it in the wrong way and ended up moving pretty far back, much to Franky's confusion. Something that a now embarrassed and visually blushing Sasaki would try and cover up by making it seem like he did this on purpose to back up for his next attack. A reasoning Franky was not buying at all, but even still, Sasaki would then actually charge forwards and this time actually hit Franky's suit here. Unfortunately, hitting his shoulder cannon, as it would then misfire, causing a bit of an explosion. And from there, Franky would grip firmly onto Sasaki here and straight up suplex the guy. And now seeing this as an opportunity to strike his weaker underbelly, Franky would lift his sword once more and strike. But he would miss as Sasaki made his way back up into the air. And for Franky, someone not so heavily versed in the art of swordsmanship, this was a bit frustrating. And in the next moment, matters only got that much worse, as his blade would be split in two and he would immediately take off in the other direction, running. And at this point, he would turn to betting on an all or nothing one-shot comeback. Sasaki would question if Franky wasn't ashamed for running like this, but Franky would just keep on running until they were both back on the live floor. And here, Sasaki would spin up again with his propeller and launch another attack, as Franky would retaliate as well, preparing a general cannon and successfully launched the Dino Man like a home run at a baseball game. And this seriously hurt Sasaki, but it was not enough to take him out, as he would tell Franky that it is thanks to the Tobiroppo that the Beast Pirates are so feared, and so he should not be underestimated. And again, he would slam right into Franky's suit here, driving it into the ground, as Franky himself would eject and prepare a final attack, now successfully following up with a radical beam again, directly to that weaker underbelly. A decisive blow that won him the fight. Yet another victory for the Straw Hats, and yet another Tobiroppo that has been taken care of. The Straw Hats may be outnumbered here, but when it comes to major forces, the Beast Pirates are beginning to dwindle for sure. But to close out the chapter, we would find ourselves finally back to Kaido and his son Yamato. With their continued clash of Conqueror's Haki, Kaido would tell his son what a wonderful addition to their strength he would be. A statement Yamato was not really fond of, but Kaido would continue by saying that he had gone through a lot of work to procure the devil fruit Yamato possesses, and so he wasn't about to let him use its power freely. And in response, Yamato would retort that he only ate it because he was hungry and had no idea what it would do to him. That all he wanted to do was set sail, yet now he couldn't even swim. A story that sounds very similar to Luffy's whole devil fruit situation in the very beginning. And clearly Yamato is getting worn out through the duration of this battle, but remember that his position here, his reasoning for fighting his father in this instance, is not to take him down, but to prolong his stance here, to keep him until Luffy is ready again. And Yamato would furthermore admit to having tried to kill his father on several occasions, and each and every time he was defeated, but it was those defeats that made him resilient and strong. And that furthermore, it wasn't just because of his father that he remained in Wano. That if he were to abandon this country, how could he possibly call himself Odin? As we would then see it, Yamato's hybrid Zoan form, and that was the chapter. Now this is a very interesting form to be had here. Truly, the Beast Pirates have provided us interesting Zoan types to last us a lifetime, but boy oh boy is this cool. So Kaido made it expressly clear that this particular Zoan type Devil Fruit was especially hard to come by, and of course when it comes to this Devil Fruit classification, the most difficult to procure would be a mythical Zoan of some sort. And in seeing this form, my immediate knee-jerk thought was that this was a Kitsune or nine-tailed fox. But I had to from there remind myself that that specific fruit was already taken by Katarina Devon of the Blackbeard Pirates, and so I had to look a bit further. So since I couldn't pick the mythical creature that came along with Naruto, I went with the next best thing, Sasuke, or at least the mythical creature inspiration behind his ultimate lightning style technique, Kirin. Now Kirin is also a mythical creature of legend, one that was originally Chinese, but like a lot of cultural influences and such, was at some point taken and adopted by the Japanese. And interestingly enough, it is said to appear with the imminent arrival or passing of a sage or illustrious ruler, which makes plenty of sense to me considering the passing of Odin and the coming of age of Momonosuke. Now, Kirin are often regarded as unicorns or Chinese unicorns when translated to English context, but it is in fact a very different thing, and so despite many depictions possessing a single horn, they may also be depicted with two horns, which accounts for Yamato's horns. And Kirin are also said to have vaguely dragon-like features as well, which fits pretty well considering Kaido is Yamato's father and all. Kirin are also depicted to possess an incredibly strong sense of justice, which may be attributed to Yamato's unwillingness to allow such injustices to persist in Wano without a proper fight. They're very much described to be a sort of chimera, and so the visuals associated with one may differ from depiction to depiction. However, often in art they may be found to be covered in flames, which could tie into Yamato's prior relationship with Ace. And finally, they have also been known to possess fluffy and or curly tufts of hair, which we may certainly see here. So yeah, a lot of reasons to believe this is a Kirin model Devil Fruit. What may perhaps be a bit confusing considering we already have a giraffe model Devil Fruit, and the word for giraffe in Japanese is pretty much the same for historical reasons. All in all, this was a pretty fun chapter of One Piece. Franky did his job, and Yamato developments are always nice. If you enjoyed the chapter and our subsequent coverage of it, be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on as we continue to provide to you the One Piece content you all so rightfully deserve. Go ahead and leave us your thoughts on the chapter in the comments, as well as by hitting us up over on Instagram and Twitter at PlotArmorYT, because when it comes to bringing you some of the best One Piece content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.